Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our next session. For this half hour, we have Jess and Carmen, and they're going to be doing a session on rewilding EdTech, a collaborative speculative scenario design and workshop. So without further ado, I will put up your screen share and then hand it over to you, and I'll just jump back in at the end and we can wrap it up when it's all done.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. Before we start, we wanted to begin with an acknowledgement of country. So that's something that we often like to do at the University of Sydney, where Carmen and I work, just acknowledging that the land we're on and that we're presenting from always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And so for me, I'm joining from the Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation, aka Sydney, Inner West in Australia. So I just wanted to pay my respects to the Gadigal elders, past, present, and emerging. And are you on Gadigal country as well, Carmen?
I'm on Wongal land today, in Sydney.
And we've just got this beautiful video to show you a little snapshot of some beautiful Aboriginal land here in Australia. Okay, so after having done the acknowledgement of country, we'll just quickly say hello and introduce ourselves, and then give you a quick overview of how we wanted to spend this half an hour together, and then we'll get into it. So my name's Jess Tyrrell, and I'm an educational developer working in the University of Sydney Business School. And I've got my wonderful colleague, Carmen Vallis, with me. Carmen?
Thank you for the rave. Yes, likewise, I'm an educational developer. Thanks for joining, and hopefully it'll be a really fun, interactive session.
Yeah, so the structure is we're going to begin, we wanted to have a bit of a chat together, and we really wanted this to be an interactive session. But since we've jumped in, we've realized it's a bit more of a streaming situation, so we'll see how we can get the interaction going. But yeah, we wanted to share, using a Miro board, share some of our EdTech gripes and frustrations of EdTech behaving badly, glitches, malfunctions, that kind of messy area is what we're interested in. And then, we're thinking about speculative methodologies. So we're going to, from that discussion, hopefully extract a couple of key aspects that we can map on a diagram and use that diagram to generate some speculative scenarios. And then if we get to it, we wanted to do a little bit of collective image making at the end to try and play around with visualizing some of those scenarios. So that's kind of the agenda. But before we get into the gripes and sharing our kind of EdTech, tales of EdTech misbehaving, we just wanted to give a bit of context of what we're doing here. Why are we speculating? Why are we talking about the future? We're really based in the context of the practice of design futuring. And for me, design futuring is about speculative design practices that open up spaces for debate and discussion about our collective futures. And futuring as a verb kind of gestures to the fact that, this can be a practice that we embody, and it's something that's ongoing to help realize, futures of collective flourishing together would be the goal. When talking about futuring, I always like to talk about futures in the plural, just to acknowledge that there isn't just one grand narrative of the future. Futures are always multiple. They're always going to be uneven. They're kind of coming into being. So I think, we talk about futures rather than the future. And design futuring is a kind of bigger methodology. So there's one specific method within that we want to explore, which is the generation of scenarios. So Dunn and Raby are really prominent design theorists and practitioners, and you can see I've got a quote from them up on the Miro board. They use scenarios a lot in their work, and they just talk about them as what-if questions. So designers actually trying to play with the idea of, fabulation, speculation, asking what-if questions through their design practice.
Yeah, and I think those what-if questions are so important in EdTech because it's always thinking ahead, thinking about future technologies and so on.
Exactly. So yeah, if you want more information on this methodology, it's been written up in a recent publication called Waste as an Interface. So just wanted to plug that if you wanted to check it out. It has all the full acknowledgements from where this methodology comes from, how it's been used. In the article, we run this workshop with digital learning designers, and we look at the idea of digital waste. So yeah, the idea for today is we're giving you almost like a little taster of the workshop that is written up in this paper. So that's the full account of this scenario methodology. But yeah, I wanted to just quickly share. Sean Bain has a beautiful quote that says, "We take care of the future by experimenting with it." So today, our session really is a bit of an experiment, us experimenting together to imagine different potential EdTech futures. But yeah, we've never done this workshop fully online, and we've never done it in such a short time as well. So we don't really know exactly what's going to happen. It's a little bit, there's some unknown outcomes there because we don't know what you'll contribute as well. Okay, so let's try and move to the interactive part of today. We were hoping we could ask everyone to share one tale of technology misbehaving. And we've got a mirror board here where you can grab a sticky note and type in your thoughts. So when we say add a tale, we were thinking maybe just a couple of keywords we can see on the mirror board. So I think, Carmen, are you popping the...
Yeah, I am. I popped the link into the main chat, but now it's on the Rewilding EdTech
Great. Okay, so
design
we
workshop chat.
Few people are jumping in, grabbing post-it notes. I see Andy's in there. Some of you will come up just as anonymous as well. So you can click and drag a post-it note and then double click to type into it. And yeah, if you could just write a couple of words, keywords about our gripes with EdTech misbehaving, or you could just broaden it out to technology, like obviously we're focusing on EdTech, but we could think about technology more broadly. So while you guys are doing that, Carmen, do you have any tales of misbehaving that are front of mind?
I have so many tales of technology misbehaving, as we all do. But if you could you please just show that QR code again? Because there are two QR codes. One of them is for the paper and the other one is for the mirror link, just in case, yeah. So once you've got that, there's a sort of tiny URL in the chat. But okay, so technology misbehaving. Well, one thing that sort of really leaps to mind for me is the authentication rigmarole. Every time having to log in, having to use your mobile phone, have your device with you all the time, multiple devices, and sort of blurring that personal and professional. So, two-factor authentication is one of my bugbears.
So maybe in the future we'll have 3-factor, 4-factor, 5-factor, 10-factor authentication, and we'll just have collections of devices that we need to verify us and our humanness. I think one I have is automated. I get so many, I guess it's spam. It boils down to spam, but sorry, plane going overhead. Specifically, I get so many automated notifications for different journals inviting me to publish in these journals that don't really exist, or some of them might be kind of scammy ones, but others are just seem to be AI slop, just automated, non-existent journals. I don't know, do you get a lot of that in your email as well, Carmen?
Oh, totally. And I just saw Joe in the chat saying 2FA was so clearly set up by people who usually wear pants with pockets. That's so true. You have to have your phone everywhere. And yeah, Stephen's got a comment there about QR codes, and surprised that they actually became popular. So yeah, there's a few kind of frustrations there. Keep those frustrations coming. I'm sure there's lots of them.
Yeah,
and it's good to see what's coming on the board there.
Yeah, lots of things coming on the board. So we had been thinking and hoping we'd be able to actually get the audience on the mic and chat with us and have a bit of a discussion. But I guess it's going to be a bit more of a Carmen and I reading out some of what you're writing on the Miro board. Just emphasizing again that we really think this design featuring practice is about creating spaces for having discourse and debate and discussion. So yeah, maybe it's kind of ironic that, or we probably should have checked out the affordances of this platform a bit more beforehand, but it's maybe ironic that, yeah, we can't even have this verbal back and forward where we are now in the streaming kind of context. But it's great having interaction through the Miro board, and I can see people are liking other people's posts. Yeah, so let's have a little look. Someone said solutionism is a gripe. So yeah, we're all thinking there's going to be some neat EdTech solution, but often, you know, there's a bit more friction or messiness in the reality. Any standing out to you, Carmen, from the Miro board?
Oh, Top Tech hates advertising paywalls. Yeah, so annoying when you're looking at stuff on the web.
So let's just read out a few more, because our aim now is to get a sense of the gripes that people have, and then we want to extract 2 variables, which in other words maybe are 2 core concepts or core themes or aspects, and then we can map them on our diagram. So yeah, we've got, as Carmen was just saying, advertising and paywalls, lack of clear instructions, platforms making big changes in the middle of a unit with students who then have to relearn a tool. Yeah, I've experienced that one. Students not being able to even log into a platform because of campus email restrictions, blocking setups for WordPress. Yeah.
Surveillance tech. Yeah.
Okay, so let us talk you through now the next section of the workshop. So if we were doing like a longer, and please keep adding your gripes if you haven't finished adding them yet, and you can also react to other people's additions. And also feel free to navigate around the Miro board and look at some of the other areas. We've put our abstract here, and yeah, we've put the full structure for as if we were doing this featuring workshop with all of the steps, but we're going to skip over a few of the steps because of the short time today. So yeah, the next step would be then from those personal narratives to start to distill some key variables that are coming up. So yeah, we often think about that in terms of forces of change or drivers of uncertainty. So yeah, here you can see it's almost like an expanded PESTLE framework. I'm sure we're all familiar with the PESTLE framework, but this has got a few extra dimensions added. But yeah, so our idea is from that discussion, we try and think of some big drivers of uncertainty that we can map on this double variable method. So like I was saying before, the double variable method is one aspect of this speculative scenario design that's part of the bigger featuring methodology. So yeah, our task is to choose 2 variables to map. And yeah, we wanted to do that together, maybe with a show of hands or hearing from people. So
maybe just thumbs up. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt there, but maybe just with thumbs up.
Most thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah. Which themes stand out the most?
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's 3 here that have 2, so maybe we can just choose out of these 2. So advertising, paywalls, instructions, and login issues. So Well, maybe we should say paywalls could be one.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a bit of an experiment, and the reason why there are 3 double variable diagrams is what I would do. We run this workshop with students, as well as, like I was saying in the paper, we ran it with the digital learning designers. It's an iterative process. So you're choosing these variables and starting to map them and, brainstorm and imagine scenarios that relate to them. But some variables can be a lot more generative for speculative scenarios than others. So sometimes we'll do it 2 or 3 times until we get some scenarios that we think are really juicy and interesting, and then we can use those scenarios to build on. Okay, so this part of the workshop is not interactive. I'm going to actually put the variables onto the diagram just to make it a bit easier. So let's say we're talking about paywalls. So let's say really high paywalls. I find that it can be, this is meant to be a creative, fun type of process. So I find the naming of the variables can influence how speculative you can be with them. So I think I came up with really high paywalls instead of just paywalls. I know like no literal height to a paywall, but does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
No paywalls. Okay, so that's one kind of spectrum of variables. And then we need to choose another one. And often, back to this forces of change and the kind of PESTLE framework, it's often good to choose one that's really more structural and then another one that's a bit more personal, or at least try and choose, if you had one that's a really technological variable, then you might map it against a different one, like an environmental variable. I need a drink.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Jess, the other one about students not even being able to log on, that one around email authentication, it's kind of like, it's almost like a bouncer system,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe it's kind of like a bouncer issue.
Yeah. So we could have bouncers or no bouncers. Here, are you saying, Carmen?
Yeah, I don't know. But feel free to put something else in the chat if you're on the chat. Because Stephen's got any paywalls, whether really high or not. So, yeah, maybe the height is not such an issue. It's just the fact that there is a wall, which can be a barrier.
Yeah, well, let's just change it. Paywall versus no paywall. Okay, so then we need another variable to go on the x-axis. So what do you think will be an interesting thing to map? The ones that have been upvoted. Oh, blue screen of death. Cloud storage assumes the network will always be available.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to choose one soon because we've only got 12 minutes left. Yeah.
Yeah, let's just try the cloud storage one. So everything in the cloud. Like I said, this is an experimental process. So I would be, if I was doing this with students or doing this, when we had more time, we'd just be trying all different variables until we get some that bring up interesting outcomes. Okay, so everything in the cloud versus no cloud, and it's completely offline. Okay, so then we have like a landscape. We've got 4 quadrants. So basically it just becomes a frame for thinking and a frame for speculating. So say we want to think about EdTech futures for 2050. Now we've got this frame to look at it through. So we would ask ourselves the question, what would 2050 EdTech look like when everything is behind a paywall and everything is in the cloud? And then going around clockwise, what would EdTech future in 2050 look like if everything is in the cloud but there's no paywalls at all? And then what would EdTech future in 2050 look like if we're completely offline and we have no paywalls? And then finally, the 4th quadrant, what would EdTech futures in 2050 look like when everything's behind the paywall but everything is offline and there's no cloud. So I can see some visitors that are zooming around. Have you got some ideas for scenarios within this diagram? Is anything coming up for you, Carmen? Which one seems like the most interesting sharing?
I just popped it into the chat. What EdTech would look like if everything was in the cloud? Well, there's a lot in the cloud already, but like absolutely everything was in the cloud, or everything was online. I like that about literal ivory tower. If everything was offline.
Thank you so much to our wonderful participants who are engaging in the mirror board and starting to speculate. I love that one as well. Yeah, so education would be a literal ivory tower. Only affluent schools have access to resources.
Yeah, because the cloud costs. Yeah. It'd also be interesting to speculate about no paywalls whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because we kind of have a lot of experience with paywalls now. So it's a bit of a hard task just to sort of come up with that in a minute. But wow, what would that look like if there were no paywalls? I mean, for this community.
Yeah, well, someone's kind of put in the MOOC, which is a good point, that I suppose that was the vision of the MOOC, isn't it? To be, massively available and online. So what else have we got? Only students with dependable connections can use resources without frustrations. Okay, and then in this top right quadrant, a few companies have a lot of control over tools.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like the future somehow.
I like this one in the bottom left quadrant. If there's no cloud and no paywalls, we have a very localized sense of place. And then talking about local history museums, is that universities would become, sorry, we're from the HE space, but I think some people here someone's talking about schools, so we must have people from all different levels of education in the audience. So yeah, would schools or universities become local history museums? I like that. That future is interesting to me because my parents are both historians. I just have an interest in history.
Yeah, Stephen's put in the chat that our museums have paywalls and access fees.
That is true. Yeah. Okay, so the next step like I said, we would, if we had more time, repeat this with different variables, maybe 2 or 3 times. And then we'd be getting quite a lot of different scenarios across these diagrams. So then we would choose a scenario that's of interest, one that's standing out the most, or feels the most intriguing. And then the next step in the workshop is to actually start to render that scenario and materialize it in some way. So that could be through making a little prototype using craft materials. So that's one way that I've done this scenario with students, this method with students. Or it could be creating images. So that's what we thought we'd ask you to do today. We've only got a few minutes remaining for our slot. But we wanted you to select one of the scenarios that we discussed and draw or find an image online that represents some aspect of that scenario. And so this part is really important because we talked about it as design futuring. Well, one aspect of the design is the design of the scenario, but it's also then the design of speculative objects or speculative images, like I said, materializing and visualizing aspects of that future. And Dunn and maybe the design theorists we talked about at the beginning create a lot of speculative objects and maybe it's what does a car look like in this future, or what does a computer look like in that future? But because the aim is dialogue, discussion, debate, they talk about making quite provocative, strange, speculative objects that people will then want to have a chat about. What does this mean? And interrogate further. Yeah, so if anyone's still out there in the audience, it would be great if you could either grab the pen tool or you can maybe find an image online, but anything that you think visualizes some aspect of the future. I'd be interested in choosing the one about thinking through what is a future where learning happens with a very localized sense of place. Kind of connects back to our acknowledgement of country at the beginning of this session, that, you know, even when we're online, we're still, you know, really situated in specific places, and that we always learn. Yeah, I guess even in a hybrid space, it's still, yeah, there's a situatedness to learning that I think is very important.
Yeah, that comment about local context is also really important, I think.
Okay, so people having trouble maybe adding images, or we might have run out of steam. While everyone's having a think about that, oh, amazing, someone's adding an image there. Thank you. While you guys are doing that, I just thought I could talk through, like I said, if we were running this workshop with more time, after everyone had created some images or some kind of visualization or materialization to represent the future that was the scenario, that's been speculated on, we'd try and push that even further and annotate these scenarios. So maybe what would be an object that was in this scenario, who would be a character in the scenario, maybe an event happens in the scenario. So yeah, ways to extend and kind of bring a bit more nuance to the future scenario that's being imagined. So as I was saying in the beginning, that idea of futures being uneven, yeah, I think something we found doing this with students at least is that often some of the first ideas can play into tropes and, you know, like really common imaginaries around the future, and be a bit simplistic. And doing this annotation aspect can help bring more nuance and kind of maybe introduce some friction, and, you know, different levels into the future scenario being imagined. And then we'd finished with a bit of an evaluation of the scenario. And this question is from the methodology that I describe in the Carmen's had a little technology.
Just threw away my mouse. Keep going.
Yeah, these questions come from Ali Crosby and Joe McKenzie, who published a paper that documents this methodology that I draw on in the paper, you know, we were plugging at the beginning. So they ask, what is emerging, what is disappearing, and which are our preferred futures? So it's only when you get to the evaluation part that we'd be asking about preferred futures, when we're actually speculating. I'm just having a look at some of the images. Yeah, in the speculative part, we don't try and think, oh, what future is better or worse. We're just trying to come up with a range of futures. Okay, some amazing images are coming up. I'm really interested in the love this.
Yeah, so, it's kind of like a DIY kind of image, which is nice. It's fun.
Yeah, and I'm interested in like the kind of disjuncture between the images as well, because it seems like there's a huge diversity of imagined futures there, from really like techie ones to more DIY. Or here's something with the local history, I guess. So I think we're almost at time. Thank you so much for contributing, being such a great audience, even though we couldn't speak directly together. We really got a sense of your enthusiasm and willingness to experiment in this kooky presentation. Yeah, we'd love to keep the conversation going. We're going to keep the mirror board open. And yeah, you can add any feedback comments straight onto the Miro board, or we've also set up a little link. If you want to send us any questions, any feedback, there's a Google form you can use. And I see we're at time. So Jason's reappeared.
Yeah, we are at time. Thank you so much for guiding us through that. That's the first time I used that tool, so that was fun to learn and be able to contribute. So thank you. I'll leave the chat's going to be open for a couple more minutes. So if people want to add any questions there for Jess or Carmen, you might want answered, the chat will remain open. And then since it is 4 o'clock or 4:01 actually, the next session up is the Fediverse 6 months from now with Stephen Downs. So that one is happening now. So like I said, the chat will be open. If you guys have any final comments or questions, post them there, and then we'll see you all in the next session. All right. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
Nom nom nom.